I'm Megan.
I'm CJ.
And I'm Erica.
And this is the Her Podcast. Today we are sitting down with mother, infertility advocate, and content creator Astrid Wendt. You may also know Astrid from the Bachelor franchise, you guys. She was on season 21 of the franchise, and then she met her now husband Kevin filming Bachelor in Paradise. Astrid is openly sharing her infertility and IVF journey with us, from becoming pregnant with her first child to navigating the journey again and is now carrying her second child, which is so exciting, to how she is working to break the stigma of infertility by using her social media platform. We are talking about how it was going through this process during COVID, how that elevated the stress of the situation, what the process of IVF actually looks like, how they navigated the pressures and the stress together and on their own, and how she became the officer of the board for the Fertility Friends Foundation to help break the stigma of infertility and support hopeful parents across Canada. You guys, Astrid is so lovely, so funny, and so open with us. We hope you enjoy this episode as much as we did.
You look so cute.
Look at your bum.
I'm so pregnant. Like, I might just be leaning back like this the whole time.
That's
so
okay.
Don't judge me.
Yes.
You be
Yeah,
comfortable.
How many weeks are you?
30 weeks now. So it's like,
You're
I know,
getting
like
there.
I could have a baby in 2 months, which is just like I will have a baby in 2 months, which is just so like terrifying to think about. Because I'm not ready. Like my in-laws are in town, so they're like helping us get the nursery ready because Kevin's dad is a contractor or carpenter.
Oh,
So
sweet.
So like if the baby came right now, I don't even have newborn diapers ready to go. Like nothing
Like, we would
ready.
be SOL.
Yeah.
Is that like that's such a typical baby number two? Hey, we're like so prepared for baby number one, and then
Oh, I know. Baby number one, I was like, I'm gonna do a theme. I'm doing a nursery reveal, like all of everything. And this one, I'm like, surely something is clean enough to put on this baby, and we'll get diapers on the way home from the hospital.
I love it. They give you some when you're there. You know?
Exactly.
I was watching a reel on your page, and did you do a baby gender reveal?
No,
Or
we just
just
had a diaper party.
Yeah, I
we
literally
did
watched the whole thing, and I was like, did I miss the reveal? And I like watched it again. I was like, wait a sec.
We're waiting to find out, and it was just like we really just wanted an excuse to have a party with all of our friends because we have the pool now.
Right.
So I was like, I should make everyone bring diapers while I'm, feeding everyone. So we just called it a diaper party. And so I just put a little bit of boy and girl stuff out, and like for people to like guess what they think we're having. But no, we don't know. We're
So
gonna
cute.
wait to find out.
Oh,
Did you wait with your first?
Yeah, we did.
Oh,
And it was,
I,
I
like,
think
could
it'll
not.
like distract me because now I know what birth is like. And I'm terrified the second time around because I know what is to come, to where like with the first one, I didn't look up anything. I just went into it with like ignorance is total bliss, and I'll just, deal with it as I have to go through it. And now I know, and I'm so scared. So I'm hoping it'll be like a nice distraction to have something to look forward to.
Yeah, I have 3, and I didn't find out with any of them, and I felt the same thing because I was always like, I want to know. And then my sister always said to me, she's like, there's not much in life that's like a really good surprise. Like in life, most surprises aren't great.
For
So
sure.
she's like, this is the one thing.
And I think because we did IVF and everything was so unlike a schedule, and like it took the like fun out of just like, oh my God, are we pregnant? Everything was so much more just medical and like appointment based that I was always against it because Kevin's brother did it with all 4 of his. So Kevin's always been the one to push for it. And I was like, no, there's no way. I gotta know. I gotta like go shopping and get the outfits and do all that. And then as we were going through all the infertility stuff, I was like, you know what? Let's let this be a surprise because everything else has been so planned. And then I loved it. And it like also keeps people from buying all the like tacky things, like the tacky boy and girl things, like Nana's little girl or like whatever it is.
Yeah.
So everything is just neutral, and then it works.
I love it.
That's actually a really good strategy. That's like a really good
yeah.
idea. I didn't even think about that. All the tacky things that you like miss.
It's true.
You obviously just hit on IVF, which is like one of the reasons, we wanted to sit down with you and have you on the podcast, is to really bring awareness to sort of your journey with infertility and IVF that you've gone through. I'd love to, before we dive into that though, like kick it back like just a little bit. I think that we'll probably have some listeners on the podcast that are avid Bachelor fans. And so I'd love to just have you tell us where you and Kevin met and kicked off your story. And then we'll continue forward with your journey.
Yeah, I mean, it's like so wild when I think about it now, because now it's been 5 years since we met. But the fact that Kevin and I met on Bachelor in Paradise, like on a reality TV show, just seems so wild. Because me now at 33, if somebody was like, hey, do you want to do this show? I'd be like, no, absolutely not. Like, I'm not putting myself in that situation. Like, I don't want to be vulnerable. Like, no way. But at 28, it seems like such a great idea just to like do for fun. I definitely didn't think I'd end up living in Canada with like 2 dogs, a kid, a second on the way.
We got you.
So it was
Well,
like
because you're from
total
Florida,
life change. Yeah,
right?
I was living in
Originally?
Florida when I met Kevin. Yeah, but because of his job and like being a firefighter, and he loves Canada, and now I get it. Like now I'm like, I would pick Ontario over Florida too. But yeah, it was like total climate shock. Like culture shock was not as bad because I'm from Europe, so I always say Canada is like the perfect mix between the Americanized things and then also the European things. You guys are kind of like in the middle.
Yeah.
So like I feel like I fit in right away. But yeah, the climate shock was intense. But
It's a big one.
From Mexico all the way to Ontario.
Well, and we were just saying, like, before we got on with you, we're like, oh, like, and the dynamic of meeting someone and falling in love in like a beautiful tropical place. And it's like, we can do anything. And then you leave and you have to like look at each other and be like, so are you moving? Are you moving? Like, what's the plan here? How did that conversation go for you two?
Well, and you guys didn't leave together.
No.
So we actually had that conversation while we were on the beach in Mexico. And it's because of Kevin's job, like his pension alone, like being a firefighter, it's such a great career here in Canada, that he from the get-go said, like, if you're not willing to leave where you're at, I'm not willing to leave where I'm at. So then it's not going to work out. Like I have to be with someone who's willing to move. And I was only in Tampa for like 2.5 years at that point, because I'd actually lived in North Carolina before then. And when my parents relocated to Florida, I was like, ooh, this seems really fun. I've been in Charlotte for, 16 years. I'm kind of ready for a change. So I moved to Florida. So I wasn't like set on it. So it kind of made it easy for us to know I was going to be the one to move kind of from the get-go. But paradise is not as like beautiful as if you just met at like a resort in Mexico, because the living conditions are very different when there's like cameras and like 10 other girls you're sharing one bathroom with. It's just like
There's
not
only
the
one
same.
bathroom?
Yeah, there's one shower for like all the girls and one shower for all the boys.
Well, that's one way to get some dramas going.
Seriously.
Which I think is the purpose.
One bathroom, all these women.
It's
Well, and I'm sure that like it makes lifelong friends. And then I'm not gonna, maybe enemy is a harsh word, but people where you're like, I could never see you again. Because you're like, I've seen too much of you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you
Like,
definitely
no
get
comment.
very close. Like it's funny thinking back to like the rose ceremonies when you're like all getting ready, and it's just like literally naked girls everywhere because it's so hot too. So you're like getting out of the shower and you're like, I can't even get dressed right now. Like because there's no air conditioning. It's all like open concept of a hotel. So there's just literally like girls with their boobs out doing their makeup and just trying to get ready and not get sweaty before the rose ceremony. It's insanity.
Oh my goodness.
Well, and we don't want to spend too much time on it because again, we do really want to hear about your journey, but as Bachelor fans and we've all watched, like we watched when you were on with Nick, so like we are aware. I just have to ask because I'm always so curious, the connections people are making like in Bachelor in Paradise, like they're legit, some of them, like obviously you have, but did you find that
For sure,
like more legit than maybe not?
I think there's like I think there's a mix of both. I think there's some people who like would fully click to in the real world if they ever came across each other, which like I don't think Kevin and I would have ever really met in a different way, because like what are the chances? And then I think there are other relationships that are just like relationships of circumstance, because you're just in this bubble. The whole purpose is to like find love or whatever it is, and like couple up and like make it to the next week or whatever. So that's kind of all you're thinking about. You don't have any distractions. You don't have TV. You don't have your friends. You have nothing else to think about. So when there's only like, so few people to choose from, you're like, oh, this person seems like the best choice out of the people that are left. And then you just kind of click, and then, and then a little bit of time goes by, and then you compare yourself a lot to the other couples. So because everyone is kind of doing the same thing. So I think the couples that then like break up or like it doesn't work out, I think they realize like, okay, we like each other, and it's like fine to like, kiss here and there, but like we're not on these people's levels. Like they're talking about getting married and having kids, or like whatever it is. So I think it's just half and half. Like half is like the real deal, half is just circumstances. There's nothing else to do,
I feel like I can equate it to camp romances.
That's exactly what I was
like.
I've
been listening, like like when you'd go to camp for like a week and you'd be like, I love him, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait.
We always called it love camp because it's truly how it is. Because you're even like sleeping in bunk beds, and like it is truly just like camp, and those are just the only people you're around, and you're with them from the moment you wake up until you go to sleep. And like there's not much else to do, like you don't want to watch a TV show of us just like tanning all day, right? So it's like we're just fed to think about love and relationships the entire time, so we're just hyper focused on it, so it just kind of happens.
So you guys end up not leaving Bachelor in Paradise together, but then go ahead.
Not to interject, but I'm like, everyone wanted you guys to be together, as viewers and fans. We were all so upset. Literally, right? So then for you guys to get together afterwards, was like,
very happy about that.
Yes.
So then what happened? I mean, obviously you came to Canada, and then what?
So it was like, for us, the breakup was more of a like, Kevin just, I think because he had been on other shows and he had been previously engaged, he was like, I can't do all of that again. And his like anxiety just turned to like panic, and like he just couldn't see clearly to be like, oh, I can just tell her like, let's just go home and date. Like it just wasn't something that he registered was an option. So he was like, well, if we're not leaving engaged, we have to break up, right? So by the time it was like you meet with the therapist after to like debrief to make sure that you're like gonna be okay, which is great. I needed that conversation afterwards. And I'll never forget her telling me, like, I just spoke to him last. He's not okay. You're not okay. You guys need to just like sleep on it and have a conversation, like when you get back to your real life. And I was at the airport the next day flying home, and he had, which is so funny because we never exchanged phone numbers, sent me a DM being like, hey, I'd like to chat. I'm like, this is so odd. Like, I just spent the last 4 weeks with this person. I have no idea what his phone number is. He's like, if you can call me. And I was like, okay, give me like a day. Like, I just need to like go home and wash paradise off of me and like get the sand out of like my luggage and watch some Housewives and like just get myself together, and then let's chat. And then I think it was like a week or so later, he flew to North Carolina to come see me to just like talk in person. And we just said, let's just take it day by day. And then I think seeing each other in person in the real world, which like we weren't supposed to do back then, we just kind of like rented an Airbnb and hid away for a couple days. And then realized like, obviously, oh, wow, this is like the same as it was in Mexico. Like it's the same whether there were cameras there or not. And I think that was really good for us to realize like you're still the same person. And then it just kind of like naturally really grew from there.
So how long after that did you make the move up to Canada?
I moved in the dead of winter. It was
Well,
terrible. I had like jackets, but they were like jackets from like Express. Like they don't keep you warm. Like it was terrible. Like I'm like, oh my God. Like I will never forget the first time I like it was a really, really like a minus 30 day or something like that. And like I popped in a piece of gum and I went to go outside and I like took a deep breath. I'm like, oh my God, I think I just froze my lungs with the mixture of this peppermint gum and the cold air. Like never again. But then by the second winter, I was climatized and I knew like I just had to go out and buy a good jacket, some boots, and then it still sucks, but it's manageable.
Manageable.
manageable is a good word.
We filmed in June. Season was like done airing by September, and then I moved that December. So
Okay.
we really went for it because I think we just realized if we're gonna give it a go, we just have to really go for it. And we didn't want to do long distance for too long because I don't think you get like that great of an idea of what the real world is really going to be like. And yeah, and Kevin's a pusher. Like he just is a rush, like with everything, you know. So he was just like, I bought us a condo. We're moving in December. I'm like, okay.
He's like, I booked your flight. Pack your bags.
Basically. I was like, okay, I guess I'm moving to Canada.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Well, we're really happy to have you.
Yes.
Oh, thanks.
Yes. In Canada. Yes, absolutely. So I'm curious then, did you guys start talking about kids then, you know, on the show? Did you start talking about kids when you moved up? You know, what did that conversation look like for you and the beginning of your journey?
I mean, that too was like one of the early conversations that we really like clicked on. Like we had those conversations in Paradise. Because he had two nieces at that point, and so he talked about them a lot, and I just talked about how family oriented I was. And again, I lived in North Carolina for 16 years. Everyone gets married by like 20. Like it's crazy. Like by the time I graduated college, half of my friends were married. And I remember I was one of like two friends who weren't married with kids yet when I met Kevin at 28, because everyone else was like working on their second kid by then. But I always knew I wanted to be a mom too. So it really was like from the get-go. I think we were always more excited to have kids and start a family than we were to like have a big wedding or anything like that.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. So what did your journey look like for you guys getting pregnant then and working towards getting pregnant and then finding out some of the infertility piece, and walk us through what that looked like, because I'm actually not familiar what that looked like for you guys.
So because we had those conversations so early, and I think like, again, like Kevin is such a pusher with these things. It's like so funny. Like he's not a patient person. Once he like decides something has to happen, then like we could only talk about it for 2 weeks and then we're like getting to it, which is what we keep.
He's like, babe, I want a baby.
2 years.
Let's go.
Basically.
Oh Lord.
But like I would say right around the time when we got engaged, we were like, okay, well, if we're getting engaged, we're getting married within a year, and then once we're married, we want to start a family. So I went off birth control. Because like he never said like, hey, I'm proposing, but like I figured between me like moving and everything, like that's where it was kind of headed. So I think I even went off birth control before we ever got engaged, just thinking like what everyone like assumes, right? It's like you get off birth control, then it takes like a year to really get out of your system. And that way, like a year or so into being off birth control, you can start getting pregnant. So then after we got engaged, we were like always jokingly not careful because we were just like, oh, if it happens, it happens. And then the pandemic hit and we were like, oh, we might not be getting married anytime soon. So we got engaged in 2019 and the pandemic hit in 2020. And we're like, okay, it might like take longer to get married. So let's just put our focus into having kids because we didn't really care about the order in which it was all happening.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, there was nothing else to do, right? Like you couldn't go anywhere. And it's funny when you like talk about the pandemic too with Canadians versus Americans, because in America, I swear the pandemic lasted like 3 months. In Canada, we were in it for like 2 years. Like it was like we truly were in a pandemic. Like we couldn't do anything. There were nothing was open. There was nothing to do. Like you just sat around your house and ate cheese and drank wine, and we're like, we'll just like try to have a baby.
Well, I've had people say things like they'll be referred to as like COVID babies.
Yeah.
We're like, should we have a baby? Because it's like
It's like
were
a
in it
baby.
for so
It's gonna be
it's
the
like a baby boom.
boomer.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, you're so right, because we were all just like stuck in our homes with like nowhere to go and waiting in line to just get groceries. So it's like that was it. It's like you either were like, let's have a baby, or people broke up, I feel like, during that time.
Yep.
So then, because I had been off birth control for so long, and then we were trying month after month, we like eventually got to a point where we're like, this is just not working out. So I think it was like the fall of 2020 where I had been off birth control for a year and I never got pregnant, to where we were like, okay, something is off. So we went and saw our fertility doctor, and we actually have unexplained infertility. So like my eggs were, well, she said my eggs were like average for my age. So they weren't like great, but they weren't terrible.
Hey everybody, it's Erica. You guys know I love a quality handbag, and I recently found a luxury resale company that I have to share with you. Working Girls Boutique offers a stunning selection of gently loved luxury handbags and a safe, reliable, and secure way to purchase your dream bag. They have a strong commitment to authenticity and choose carefully curated pieces in excellent condition, which include Prada, YSL, Louis Vuitton, and they have a stunning Chanel collection, which is 100% on my dream list. One thing I love about Working Girls Boutique is how seriously they take making sure each piece is authentic. Ensuring authenticity of luxury items is a serious business, and Working Girls Boutique prides themselves on thoroughly checking every item they choose to the highest degree. They even use AI technology so you can feel super secure about the bags you are investing in. Working Girls Boutique also offers a flexible payment plan so you can secure your dream bag without breaking the bank. Plus, they gave us an exclusive discount code for the Her community, which is amazing. It's code HER50 to save $50 off your purchase. If you're like me and constantly looking for that next dream bag to add to your closet, you can find all the details on the newest designer additions on their Instagram at Working Girls Boutique, and head to their website, wgboutique.com, to secure your dream bag. Don't forget to use the code HER50 for $50 off your purchase, and 100% make sure to tag me because I want to see what bag you snagged.
And then with Kevin, everything was like great, like sperm in the millions. He was like so excited. So they couldn't like pinpoint it to anything. They're like, you guys should be getting pregnant, but you're not. So it's just unexplained. So we didn't want to go super aggressive to begin with. We're like, let's just do the IUIs, but do them medicated. So we did 2 rounds of that. But then on my second round, I had an ectopic pregnancy, which can sometimes be a side effect of being medicated during all of it, because then you're just like overproducing mature eggs.
I want to interject. I just want you to quickly, can you just say what IUI is?
And this is like such a funny story too, because again, this is during the pandemic. So like Kevin couldn't come in to like give his sperm. So he would have to like do the deed at home. And then I would have to take the cup and put it in between my chest to keep it warm, because you have to bring it to the office within an hour of like it being ready. And so I'd be like driving to the fertility clinic, just like, okay, I have an hour to like keep the sperm warm in between my chest. Like, I hope I don't get pulled over. This is going to be a very odd story to tell. And
oh my goodness,
IUI, they just use a catheter, and they basically just insert that catheter and push the sperm in. Like, they wash the sperm so they get the best of the sperm, and then they insert that. So it's like almost as if you're having sex. Versus IVF, they took my eggs, they took his sperm, they implanted the 2, and then they let the embryo already get to, like, they form the embryo. And with IVF, you have the embryo inserted with the catheter instead of just the sperm.
Okay.
So first 2, we were like, let's not go as aggressive, because there's a huge price difference. Like IVF, I think we spent like $20,000 on IVF. All of our IVF stuff between both kids is probably like $25,000. to where an IUI is like $400. So it's like a
Okay.
huge
Oh,
price difference. You can do it honestly as many times as you want. I think when we first talked to our doctor, we said, let's give it like 3 months of trying this and see how it works and then reassess. But then the second
Okay.
time I had an ectopic pregnancy, which means that the sperm meets the egg, but then it doesn't go to your uterus, it gets stuck in your tube. So the embryo gets stuck in my fallopian tube. And if it's not treated right away, your tube can actually burst, which can then like prevent you from having kids in the future. Like it's really dangerous. Like women pass away from ectopic pregnancies. Because I was monitored so much and I was in the clinic every like 2 to 3 days, they caught it really early. So they gave me a drug to basically terminate the baby, and it's like came out on its own, which I was lucky too, because even sometimes when you take the medicine, it still kind of just like sticks and you have to have surgery.
Yeah.
So then after that, once you have one ectopic pregnancy, you're likely to have it again. So then we kind of knew our next step was gonna be IVF, just to avoid going through that again.
Okay. Because when in IVF, then they make sure it goes where it needs to go.
Yeah, because it's already the embryo, and it's more of
Right.
like a surgical procedure versus just let me just like wash it in there and then just lay there for 10 minutes and then go about your day.
Legs up.
So I'm curious, how did you find like family and friends like responding while you were going through this? Was this something that you were sharing openly about? You were like happy to talk about kind of what we're going through? Because I think this is a really hot topic that, you know, like you should never ask someone if they're trying to have a baby or, you know, how that's going, because obviously there are some people who are like, I don't want to talk about it, and others who want to share. I'm curious kind of where you sat and then what the response was when you did start talking about it.
Yeah. So because we weren't married yet, I feel like we were lucky because nobody ever asked us those questions. Because I can't imagine having been trying that whole time and then somebody asking like, oh, are you trying to get pregnant? Like it just would have been so like soul crushing every single time. But because we weren't married yet, like I don't think it was on anyone's radar to think that we'd be trying to have a baby. They just assumed like, oh, it's the pandemic, they're going to push the wedding and whatever. So we didn't tell anyone. And I think we were just so anxious too, because we didn't want that added pressure at the time of like, you know, moms calling or whatever, just asking us,
Yeah.
how's it going? Did it work? Did this month work? So we didn't tell anyone until we started doing IVF. So throughout the first year of trying and the IUIs and everything, we just kept it to ourselves. And then once we went the IVF route, I'm like, okay, I have to tell my mom because now it's like a procedure, right? Like I can't like go have something like that done and my mom not know. She'd be so mad at me. And then everyone was super supportive after that. And even once we did share it and shared it even on Instagram and everything, I was like, we should have just shared it to begin with because there's such a community out there. And in the moment, I felt like I was like the only person going through it. And I felt like because it was the pandemic, I was like, everyone is getting pregnant. Like people that I didn't even realize had boyfriends are now having babies, and we're trying month after month and it's not happening for us. So it felt really like alone. And again, like there wasn't anywhere to go, anything to do. So I was so hyper focused on it. Because I was just sitting around thinking about having a baby every single day, every single month. So, I think that's like my biggest piece of advice. It's like, maybe you don't have to be as like open about it as I am now, because I understand not everybody like has that personality. And it also makes it easier for someone like me because I have an audience. So like the love that comes with it is just like so amplified, right? To where, you know, not everybody might have that, but I do recommend to people like share it, even if it's just with one person, like even if it's just your best friend or your mom or your sister, whatever it is, because it's hard when you only have your partner to talk about it, because if they're ever like in a good mood and not down about it, like you're down about it, you feel like you don't want to bring them down. So then you just internalize so much of it because you don't want to make that person sad because you know what they're going through. It's the same thing you're going through. So I wish I would have shared sooner with just like a friend or something, but we had made a pact that we're not going to share. And so I was like, I can't break it. I can't like secretly tell anyone.
Aw.
Oh my gosh, you're so respectful. I'd be like, Nick, we're not telling anyone. And then I'd be like, guess what? He knows that about me. He's like, she can't keep the secret. But speaking of, you just said your partner, like, how was Kevin handling all of this? I'm very curious because, again, I think this topic, for good reason, is primarily spoken from like the female perspective. And was this something Kevin was also like, kind of feeling down about, or was he like the optimist and was like, no, it'll work? Like, how did that go for you guys?
So he, like now it's kind of gotten better, but he was super anxious at the time. So he was the one who like, again, was like pushing to go see a doctor because he was like, I can't like go another month of like trying and not knowing if something is wrong. And then while we were going through all the infertility treatments, I think it was really hard for him because he couldn't go to anything. So he felt like I had to do so much of it on my own. And I think even still now, since the pandemic, they don't really let partners come in because they're just trying to like minimize anyone getting sick, because you can't do the procedure if you have COVID, like they won't let you. So I think the hard part for him was feeling like really helpless because he wasn't feeling what I was feeling body wise, like the cramping and the bloating and the weight, just like all of the emotions. Like I was crazy some days. So I feel like he just felt like he didn't know what it felt like. So he didn't really know like what's the right thing to do or say with the support. And then like I had to be the one going to every single appointment. So he was just like anxiously sitting at home for all of them, just like waiting to hear from me. But he also didn't want to like bug me and text me a bunch. So I think it's obviously hard being a woman going through it, but I think you're right. Like the men's side of it is often forgotten because it's just as hard for them, except they don't get all the like love and attention from the doctor and all of that, and a lot of it, to where he felt really helpless, I think, throughout a lot of it.
Well, and from what you've explained about him, that doesn't feel like it would sit right, especially with like a firefighter. I don't think they're used to feeling
like, no, like he just wants to do something about it. I'm like, there's nothing we can do. Like everything is a waiting game. Like I can't control my body and how my body reacts to the medicine or the procedure or whatever it is. So yeah, he doesn't have the best personality for that. But then when it got to the points of like when I was pregnant and it was time to do all of the injections, or even before, like all the injections and all of that stuff, he had like the best personality for it, because he was just like, I can jab you, I can do all of that, like not scared of blood, just like ready to be my little nurse.
Like, I'm a first responder. I got this.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know if people realize, maybe they do, maybe they don't, as it's getting like more out there, but how much medication, how much, how many injections I think that there are, right? And how that can change, your body composition, like how you're feeling, like your hormones. Can you shed light into what that was like for you? And when they first told you, okay, you're going to take, I don't know what it was, like 20 pills, and you're like, okay. And then they're like, okay, and then you're gonna have to inject yourself however often it was. And you're like, huh, like, how did you feel about some of that? And what did that look like?
I'm not scared of needles. So that helped a lot. I think people don't realize how much you get poked, because it's not just the injections. You're also having your blood taken every 2 to 3 days, like even just to do the monitoring to figure out which day of your cycle you're at. You are like constantly getting poked like the entire month. The only time you just get a break is after you have whichever procedure, to wait the like 14 days until you can test to find out if you're pregnant or not. But then those weeks are like, no, I want to be in the clinic every single day. Like, can somebody just come look at my uterus, just to see if anything is going on? So for us, so it's usually like, I think the way it was is always like 2 weeks worth of injections and medications. And then it was like the 2 weeks of waiting. And then you find out if you're pregnant or not. And then you have like another, 5 to 6 days. And that's when you're on your period or not. And then it goes back to starting all over again. So it was definitely exhausting. And like the emotions, the best way I can like explain it is like, think of yourself when you're like getting your first period and like your, you know, like your parents were like, you're psychotic because your hormones are just like intense, right? Or it's like after you have a baby when your hormones are balancing out. It's just like, it's such a big shift because they're just like doubled. And then two, once if you do get pregnant, then you have all of your pregnancy hormones, but also all of the extra hormones they're still giving you to like ensure the baby's in like the best possible situation possible. Or like it was similar to when I went off birth control, where like all of a sudden like I wasn't like moderated anymore, you know? So it was very similar to that, to where it was just, it felt really extreme. And I find I'm like I think I'm a pretty chill person. Like I just have this like memory of like nothing happened, but Kevin annoyed me. And I just like went into the room and I just like legitimately screamed out loud, like just like, you know, and he like came and he goes, are you okay? Like our neighbors are going to think something's going on. I'm like, honestly, I don't know how else to get the frustration out. Like, I'm not going to punch something, but like, I just had so much, like, I didn't know where to put all of the emotions because it was just pumped full of so many of them.
So when you get pregnant and you said that they're continuing to give you hormones to support the pregnancy, how long does that go for? The entire pregnancy, or what does that look like?
So I know different clinics do it a little bit differently. The clinic I went to, you do it your whole first trimester. So I had to do daily injections until I was 12 weeks, along with also estrogen pills every day until I was 12 weeks. And, you know, I mean, none of the shots are like fun, but the progesterone shots, once you do get pregnant, are like the worst of it all. Like that is kind of like one of my deciding factors on if I would ever try for a third again or not, because they're so painful because they're like an oil-based injection. So your body doesn't fully absorb it. So like I still have lumps on my butt from this one. Like it eventually went away. I think it was like 2-3 months after I had Augie, they went away with him. And like now, like I'm trying to feel my butt and they're like almost gone, but I can still kind of feel them. And I went in for a prenatal massage the other day and the lady was just like, what are these lumps in your butt? And she was trying to get them out. I'm like, ma'am, you're not going to be able to massage these out. Like I have used the Theragun and like a heat pad. Like I've tried everything because your body can only absorb so much of the oil. And my clinic too prescribes like a really high dose of it. But you know, it makes like a cushy little environment for the baby. So you're thinking like, okay, I'm pregnant. So like I'm doing this to like get to the first trimester. So you like don't want to complain too much, but they hurt. Like you can't really sit very well and everything's just bruised and lumpy. You get a very lumpy butt.
Like the things we do
Right?
as women. And we're like, it's cool. I have a lumpy butt. It's all good.
Well, I know, and I still have to give birth. Like all of that, and then I still have to give birth. Like it doesn't seem fair.
Goodness. It's not fair.
Did birth with Augie go well? Like, I mean, I know you said you didn't know what to expect.
It was good. Like I was induced with him. So like they like to induce when you do IVF. They don't want you to really go over the 40 weeks. And he was, at the time, they said he was measuring small, but I swear the ultrasounds that they like, it's never really that accurate because then he came out and he was like very average, not measuring small at all. So they induced me, but I was already dilated. So I didn't have to do the balloon, which I hear can be very painful. So I got lucky with that. So then it was just the Pitocin to kind of get my labor going. But it was pretty smooth with him. Like I went in at 2, they gave me the Pitocin and broke my water at like 4:30 that afternoon. And then I had him at 2 a.m. So it was not as bad. Like I think I pushed for like 45 minutes, which is could be better, could be much worse, you know?
Yeah.
But so not bad. I think I was just not prepared. I think I was so hyper focused on the birth part with him. I didn't process the recovery that came with giving birth. Like I didn't realize like, oh, I won't be able to sit for 2 weeks unless I'm on like one of those donut pillows or, you know, like it didn't register, like it didn't register to me that I'd be in like diapers for, 2 weeks as I'm changing diapers. Like, I think I just didn't fully process that. So now it's like the birth was easy. So I'm like a little bit scared of that, but I'm more so nervous of like the after, because I now also have a toddler. So like with Augie, I just like laid in bed and took it easy. And I feel like I won't have any of that, which everybody does it. So I'm sure it'll be fine, but I'm psyching myself out.
Yeah. I realized I got ahead by asking you about your birth with Augie. What was it? I want to quickly go back. What was it like when you found out you were pregnant, and how many rounds of IVF did you have to do?
So I got so lucky in that I got pregnant with my first transfer with Augie, and then again with this one too. So I've only done 2 transfers. So at my clinic, they test your levels at 12 days, like they do the blood work. I made it like 8 days with Augie before I woke up in the middle of the night and took a pregnancy test at like 4 a.m. I was like, I'm too anxious. I can't wait.
Hey, everybody, we're taking a quick ad break to chat about something I think you're going to want to listen to. If you listened to episode 39, then you know we had a super informative conversation with Kim Fraser, who's an incredible physiotherapist and owner of Still Physio here in Saskatoon. Kim has just recently launched the Still Physio Education Program. This is an online program that offers courses to support you long-term and in between your appointments, which if you got a busy schedule, this is something you're really going to want to take note of. I'm excited to check out the Deep Inner Core and Pelvic Floor series myself. I actually did a lot of pelvic floor work when I was pregnant with both Beatrice and Theodore and was a huge fan of it then, and am looking to incorporate it into my life again now. This program takes you through 6 sections and 2 bonus sections, which focuses on building a strong, sustainable deep inner core that will help you prevent injury and trust in your body. Each video is less than 40 minutes, and if you're like me and a morning person, this is a great way to start your day or bookend it. I highly encourage you to head over to stillphysio.ca to sign up for Still Physio Education and start the Deep Inner Core and Pelvic Floor series. Also, while you're there, check out the other courses offered. You can connect with Kim and follow Still Physio on Instagram at Still Physio. Head to stillphysio.ca to sign up for Still Physio Education. And if you haven't listened yet to episode 39, go and download. It's definitely a must listen.
I just need to like see if there's any kind of lines. So we found out with Augie on, I guess it was day 9 post transfer. And I woke up Kevin like in a panic. He was like, what's going on? Like he thought something was wrong. I'm like, no, it's a positive pregnancy test. And then by 5:30 a.m., this man was literally drinking a whiskey and Diet Coke in bed just to like take the edge off.
Celebrate? Oh, okay.
To celebrate, and ordered me some Tim Hortons, and we just like had breakfast in bed, and he drank whiskey. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And I was running out of the progesterone oil because they have you on it from the beginning. So like that's another hard thing for anyone who does IVF and then it doesn't work out when they do a transfer. It's like they still have you on those shots for at least the first 2 weeks, hoping that you get pregnant, to again like give the baby the best chance possible. And so I was running out of meds, and so I went into my clinic and I'm like, I'm out of meds, but also I took a pregnancy test. So can you guys just like take my blood? Like I can't wait another 3 days to confirm this. So they did, and the levels were positive, and then they test you for like I think like another 2 weeks every like 3 to 4 days just to make sure everything is rising the way it's supposed to.
Right.
And then you get your like first ultrasound to confirm.
What was it like for you in that first trimester? Because I know there's kind of like, I've only been pregnant once, but there's kind of that like 3-month kind of window where you're just like, I'm not going to tell anybody until, what was it like for you guys being so excited that the IVF worked? Were you apprehensive? Were you like, hopeful? What was your mindset like?
I was like, this was when I was in like my manifesting stage. Like I just like wouldn't accept anything other than like, it's happening. I'm going to get pregnant. It's going to work. Like I couldn't let myself really think of anything that could go wrong because I didn't want to go there. And so like we told our parents right away, and we told like our closest best friends, because we felt like with all of the bad news we had had for so long, like we just wanted to like finally like be excited about something, you know? And if it wasn't going to end up that, you know, turn out to be good news down the road, like we would deal with it. But we were like, we just want to like be happy and excited and think of everything that could happen. So we celebrated pretty early, but I'm glad we did. Like I always tell people, when you do have those moments when you're going through infertility, it's like you have to celebrate the little things, because you have so many down days that if you have a good day, you got to like take advantage of it and feel those happy emotions too.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm curious on what are some maybe like either like misconceptions about, you know, infertility and IVF, or maybe some things that you like wish people knew, that you were like, hey, like I wish, you know, this was like more out there for the general public. I wish that people actually knew this about, you know, this journey.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the biggest misconception I know I had was I thought once you go in and see a fertility doctor, then it's just like, okay, here's the plan, and you'll be just like pregnant in 3 months. And it's really still so dependent on your body. So between like when I went in for my first appointment to get everything, to like meet my doctor, to getting pregnant with Augie, it was like a 10-month process still, right? And that was like a year into trying. So it's not just an overnight thing, because just to have everything tested, it's like you have to be on day one of your cycle. So then do all of the blood work. Then the guy has to get tested. Then I had to do a test to make sure my tubes were clear. So they like inject you with this dye and watch it in ultrasound. Like, so there's so many tests just to like get to the point of like, what's our course of treatment. And then I think people really don't realize how time consuming it is, because you are in that clinic, like I said, every 2 to 3 days, and they're busy, right? So like in Ontario, for example, because I don't know how it is in the States. I think because you pay for more of it out of pocket, it's probably a little bit different. But I know in Canada, because like at least the blood work and the ultrasounds and all of that stuff is covered, the clinics are really, really busy. So even if you have an appointment time, you're not just like in and out in 30 minutes. I would spend like hours at the clinic. Like I would like, and once we moved to Burlington, I was still going to Toronto because that's where my embryos were. And I remember with the second one, there was a day where it was like 9 hours between when I left my house, drove in traffic, got to the clinic, did the blood work, did the ultrasound, saw the doctor, drove back. I'm like, this is like somebody's full work day. And like, it's just a day of like, it's just another day of trying to get pregnant. So I think people don't realize how much kind of goes into it when people are going through it. And it's, you know, people are like, oh, it'll happen, or like, don't overthink it. It's like, well, I can't not overthink it because it's consuming my life. So
Well, and you have
I think
a schedule to maintain with it.
Okay. And I don't know, ladies, are we jumping ahead if we get into her foundation that she's a part of?
No, I want to talk about
I want to hear that.
Right. Because I'm like, you're an officer of the board, a board officer. You're on the board. I don't know. You can correct me on that one. So tell us more about that organization, because I know the little bit I know, like you mentioned, like infertility and IVF is so expensive. And I know you guys are raising money with the organization to be able to give out, I think it's like grants or like funds for people who need help financially with the cost of infertility or are looking to get pregnant.
Yeah, so it really truly is like such an incredible organization. I actually got involved with it through my fertility doctor. So Dr. Sharma is on the board as well. And so when I went in for baby number 2, she was like, okay, I know we're here to like make another baby, but also I have to talk to you about this foundation because they do incredible work. And you're right. So they give grants to couples for both IUIs, IVF, for surrogacy as well, which is even more expensive than IVF. And it's one of the only registered Canadian foundations that does this. Right now, the grants are only given to people in Ontario, but we're actually looking to expand to give it all across Canada, and then hopefully, you know, go global eventually. But it's all through fundraising, you know, and our board is like a small group of 10 people, and we just brainstorm on how we can raise money. We just picked 10 couples or 10 grant recipients for the spring. So we're hoping to do 10 more again this fall. So we're
Wow.
already
Amazing.
it's really amazing. Last year they gave, I believe, 12 total. So the fact that we're already at 10 for the year is really, really great. So we're hoping to kind of double that number from last year. And it's all based on people, you know, helping us, you know, it's just fundraising. It's like we did a Fertility Friends run in the spring, and it was incredible to realize like how many people know someone who has gone through it, you know.
Yeah.
Kevin and I, so the grants are for $5,000 each that we give. And like I said, we spent $20,000 total on just Augie because I wasn't a Canadian resident yet, so I couldn't get my free funded
Oh.
cycle in Ontario.
Yep.
So Ontario does the one free funded cycle, but it doesn't cover the meds. It just covers the procedure part of it, which the meds are insanely expensive. For like 1 month of meds, it's like $4,000 to $7,000, depending on how many you need, because based on your egg
Wow.
count or whatever, you need a higher dose. So it means you're taking more medicine. And again, we got lucky in that when we did our retrieval, we got 3 embryos out of it. And then my first 2 transfers, both with Augie and then this baby, they worked, right? So I still have another embryo left if I want to try for a third. And I don't know if that would stick or not. Like I have that option. A lot of people get 1 embryo or get no embryos and then have to do it all over again. So you're looking at like thousands and thousands of dollars. So we give grants of $5,000 through Fertility Friends Foundation to just alleviate some part of that financial burden that people have.
So if people are looking to get involved in it, either in like supporting you guys and helping you with fundraising and donating to it, how can they do that? And, or if someone is listening, and I know it's only in Ontario based right now, but we have some listeners in Ontario and people are looking for, to apply for, funding, how do those sort of 2 things work?
Yeah, so if you're looking to apply, we open registrations twice a year. So the spring one just got finished and we just chose our recipients for that. But then in the fall, they'll open applications again, and it'll be like a 1 to 2 month window when you can submit all of your paperwork and everything. So the best thing to do is follow the foundation on Instagram, I would say, which is at Fertility Friends Foundation. Because they post updates on there constantly. And they also have lots of really great resources for people just struggling with infertility. They do a lot of really cool like lives with different doctors and lawyers and just people in the community that super educational. And what's great about the foundation is they don't just like give you the money, they give you that grant and then they help support you throughout whatever your journey is. Because, you know, again, not everyone has a support system. Like we give grants even to single people, you know, because just because you're not with someone doesn't mean you shouldn't get to start a family. So it's really, really great what they do. So that's if you want to apply and you're in Ontario. And also if you're not in Ontario, give them a follow, because once we do expand, that's where it'll be announced. And then to donate, you can do that through their Instagram as well, or the website, which is fertilityfriendsfoundation.com. There's a place to donate. We'll do some fall fundraisers too, if you guys want to wait for that. But we will take money any day of the week, whenever. There doesn't have to be an event going on. Such a small amount makes such a big difference. Like when we did the Fertility Friends run, Kevin and I had a team and we like set a goal of like, okay, let's raise $1,000 or like whatever it was. They wanted all of the board members to set that goal. And just from me posting on social media, we raised over $5,000. So it was
amazing.
An entire grant, and it wasn't big donations. People weren't giving $500 or, you know, wasn't big amounts. It was people were giving $5, giving $10, like just giving a little bit. But 100 people give $5. That's a lot of money, you know? So
Yeah.
I think people get like intimidated to donate sometimes and feel like they have to give such big amounts, but like literally $1 makes a difference because it goes towards that lump sum. And the more we raise, the more grants we can give.
Well, and I think before when CJ said like one is, what are some of the biggest misconceptions about infertility and all that, I also would add on to what you said is the money piece, is people not understanding how much money it costs when you're in a place that you're like, we desperately want a family, and it's not just simple for us, right? So I'm glad that you're able to even share this, and hopefully some of our listeners will be excited and want to go and donate.
Yeah. And I
no,
think
you're so right. I think it's important to remember that like Kevin and I, who were able to then do IVF and get pregnant, it's like there's such a privilege that comes with that, because yes, we had to think about, okay, where is this money coming from? And like, what are we not spending money on now? And like, we were like, let's push the wedding, let's do this, let's do that. But at the end of the day, we were able to just like go for it. And a lot of people have to like save up for a really long time just to do one cycle. And then that's not even a guarantee. So I don't think it should be a privilege to start a family. And obviously things have to change and costs have to come down and funding has to be there for people. But until then, we're going to work to try and help as many people as possible.
Well, and we're getting close to the end, but I wanted to touch in on, looking back on your journey and everything that you've been through. Like maybe we have a listener who's listening and they're like, either they're, in their first round or thinking about IVF or, starting an infertility journey and like figuring out what that looks like. What are some of your tips looking back on your experience, like things that really stood out to you that you're like, oh, like these were like pillars for me, things that I circled back to, techniques that I use, I don't know, anything in your daily routine or, that you would suggest for others to try?
Yeah, I kept myself really busy. I felt I was always at my saddest when I was just like sitting around thinking about it. So like I try to still make plans with people, or even something as little as like putting on my headphones and going on a walk for an hour and listening to a podcast to just like distract my mind. Keep yourself busy, find a community. So like if you don't feel comfortable telling people, there are so many resources online of communities you can join, Facebook groups, all of that kind of stuff where you have people to talk to. And what I wish somebody would have told me when I was going through it is that like the rest of your life doesn't have to stop while you're trying to like get to that goal. And like now that it's not a pandemic and we're kind of back in the swing of things, it's like keep doing those date nights with your partner, because you still need to connect in other ways other than just thinking about when are we getting pregnant and is it going to work. Like get concert tickets, do dinners with your girlfriends, like just keep living life, because all of the visits will consume so much of your day to day that if you don't make that effort to like make other plans and do it on days you don't want to leave the couch, you're going to be happy that you have some like happy memories during maybe some of the hardest months that you're going to go through.
That's great advice.
And bring a book to the clinic, because you're there for hours. Like should bring something. Like I always brought my laptop or a book, and then it seemed like time went by faster, because the first few months I would just stare at the wall waiting for my name to be called. But I really got into reading.
Yeah, that's Canadian healthcare, which is a whole different topic. Yes, the waiting game. We always like to ask, and I know we've already kind of picked on the advice when it comes to maybe infertility and that journey, but we always like to ask our guests if they would share a piece of advice that they've ever been given or that they like to share with others that like has really impacted their life. And this can be fertility based if you want, or just anything else.
Oh God, yeah, I don't know. Well, I guess I'll give advice that is not super fertility based. I think the best advice I was ever given is that you have to like truly live life for yourself. Like you cannot live it for other people, because people are never going to be pleased with you about every single thing. So you just like, you have to do what makes you happy in like truly every aspect of life. And I'm learning this as I get older. Because I feel like I'm such a people pleaser and I'm trying to like change that a little bit. And it can be as like little as if you have plans and you have had those plans for like weeks or months, but you just don't feel like doing it, it's okay to cancel those plans. Like if it's going to make you happy to just take a bath and watch reality TV by yourself, that's what you have to do. You have to like truly listen to what your body and your mind is telling you that you need. So I think that would be my piece of advice, to just live for you, because once you make yourself happy, everything else just kind of falls into place.
That's so good.
That's solid. That's something we were just talking about actually with a guest the other day. We were podcasting too, and we were like, it needs to become more socially acceptable to be like, hey, the plans I made a month ago no longer work for me, right? And be willing to have those sometimes hard conversations with people. That's like, I would prefer to be in my bathtub right now, and it's actually not about you, it's more about me.
Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to get way better at that. And I did actually do that the other week, and it was like a new friend and I felt so bad. And for like days, I'm like, I can't cancel. Like I'm trying to make new mom friends. And then I realized like, if I stick to these plans, the whole rest of my day is going to be shit. But if I just like cancel these plans and I have these 3 extra hours to get the things done that I need to get done, I'm going to have a way better day. I'm going to have a way better weekend, enjoy myself. So like, why do I have to have a harder day just because I need to like stick to these plans? Like I need to just do what works for me. And I don't have time to sit at the pool for 3 hours today. I wish I did, but I don't. And so I think it's important to kind of put yourself first.
I also think if any friend understands, it's a mom friend. Right?
True. For sure.
Mom friends will give you all the grace. They're like, I get it. I don't want to come either. Perfect.
Thank you for canceling. I didn't want to be the one to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's nothing quite like that sweet relief when they text you. Sweet relief. Sweet relief.
Well, for those of our community members that maybe are meeting you for the first time, can you tell them where they can find you and follow you along with your journey, and also where they can find and support the foundation?
So the foundation is at fertilityfriendsfoundation.com, or on Instagram, they're at Fertility Friends Foundation. And then I'm just at Astrid Loch on Instagram. I'm trying to change my name, but Instagram is giving me a very hard time. So my handle is still Astrid Loch.
Yeah, this was so great having you on. We honestly feel so honored that you came on our podcast and shared your journey. This was a topic that we really did want to have someone come on. And so it's like perfect timing. You're so lovely. I think our community is really going to love getting to know you. And just thank you so much for taking the time for us today.
Thank you guys. You guys were so fun to chat with.
Oh, yay.
Thank you everyone for joining us on this episode of the Her Podcast. If you want to follow along with us, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at its.her.podcast. We can't wait to see you there.
Bye.
Adios.